buckle up, because it's going to be a long ride. It's going to be a wild ride. Nobody cares, but we're going to tell you anyways. This is Popcorn Chats.
There we go.
Okay. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Popcorn Chats. I'm Katie.
And I'm MICHAE.
And this week, we are finally talking about the highly anticipated film starring Florence, Pugh, Harry Styles, Chris Pine, Olivia Wilde, Nick Kroll, and many more.
Gemma Chan.
Yes! We're very excited to talk about this movie. We're talking about Don't Worry, Darling, directed by Olivia Wilde today. Obviously, lots of discourse surrounding this film the past month and a half or so, it seems like. Lots of drama circulating the film. There's been pretty much minimal to no press about this film other than the drama surrounding it. Mikhail and I both went and saw it in theaters separately, unfortunately. I wish we could have watched it together. We are going to be talking about our reactions to the film, what we thought about the film, and then also, I believe, probably chatting and addressing the drama. So yeah, all that to come in this episode. First, though, we must check in. How are you, bitch?
I am doing okay. I'm very caught up in like the Hurricane Ian TikTok side of TikTok. That and the Try Guys. That's like my entire For You page right now.
Oh, jeez. Is it getting bad?
What, the Try Guys with Ned cheating?
No, with the hurricane.
Oh. Just like a lot of people, like how they storm prep, going to the stores, getting their stuff, that kind of thing. Because weather storms like really terrify me. Like we get tornadoes in the Midwest and I'm horrified every time there's like even a tornado watch. Like I panic. So I can't imagine being in Florida right now with that. Because I don't know if it's better or worse that you have warning. Because then it's like you can prepare, but also I would have so much time to sit there and be so anxious. So yeah,
the impending doom of it all.
But besides that, I'm doing pretty good. I'm just a little overwhelmed. I feel like just a state of What? I've just been in a state of being overwhelmed for like, I don't know, the past couple of months, and it's just not really going away, but I mean, that's okay. I'm busy and that's good. Loving House of the Dragon, bitch.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my god, it's incredible. This week did feel like a pilot episode, like a second pilot for the season. It wasn't my favorite episode so far, but I am excited to see where things go. We were cheated on something big, but I can't talk about it because Katie's not caught up.
I know, but I'm getting there. I'm really getting there. Like all of my free time is devoted to that show now. Now that Karini went back home, so House of the Dragon. I look forward to it at the end of each day.
It's just incredible, and we're definitely gonna have to do an episode covering the season when it's complete, and I'm just so excited. So that's consuming most of my like brain power outside of work and fun work. So
this is some tea, but ever since I went off the birth control pill, my periods have been super mild and like very light, and they last for like 3 days, and so I'm like, birth control is a fucking scam, and it sucks that I had to be a practicing lesbian to come to that fucking realization, like after no longer needing birth control, and I'll never need it again. But like, anyways, I am having a really bad period right now, like my first bad period since going off the pill, and it just kind of threw me for a fucking loop. Today is like day 1, and it's just really not fun, and I had a little bit of an upsetting moment at work, and I can't really tell if it's because I am like PMSing or if it's because I was actually wronged. I think it's a little mixture of both, but you know, whatever. We're gonna let it roll off my back. I'm excited to be here today talking about this film. I had a glorious day at the Grove yesterday watching this movie, except I was anxious because they were taking forever with my snacks, and it was like 1:40, and the movie was supposed to start at 1:30, but obviously like all the previews, it ended up being fine. I didn't miss anything, but I was like, where are my snacks? I'm trying to get there, get my seat, and get buckled in for this shit. What an immaculate place. But then walking out into the Grove after watching this movie, if you've seen this movie, it's very obviously like they're in the Los Angeles hills, it seems like. I'm not 100% sure that's where they filmed it, but it looks like LA, basically. I was like, everything's fake. Everything's a simulation. Not these fucking helicopters circling again, bitch. I can't.
Trash.
Fucking garbage. What
Shall we jump into
start
the
with? Yeah, let's fucking do it.
Okay, standout star. Katie, Who's your standout star?
Obviously Florence. She carried.
Yeah. There's one right answer to that question.
Yes. What was your standout scene?
Oh, okay. You don't have anything to elaborate on with Florence.
Well,
Florence.
do you have stuff to elaborate on? I just feel like she carried. I think she's one of the best actresses in the game right now.
What's your standout scene?
I guess it's not really a scene, but like towards the end when she's covered in blood, like her shirt or her dress, her white dress is covered in his blood and she's running, and Bunny, Olivia Wilde's character, is like telling her to run, and all the husbands are like freaking out, and then all the wives are kind of like starting to figure it out and catch on for themselves. I just thought that was a good moment, and I think it was definitely like the most intense part of the film, or one of the more intense moments. So, and I liked that Bunny, her allegiance was with her friend and not with her husband or like with Victory as a whole.
Yeah, I liked Olivia Wilde in this.
Me too. I thought she slayed.
I don't think I really had a standout I mean, there are so many like standout moments, but I think like as a whole, I don't think there's one scene that necessarily like
I heard him.
He's trying my patience when I already have 0. I have 0 left at the end of this fucking day. I don't know. I don't have a standout scene. Whatever. They're all good.
Yeah. I feel like for me, what stands out more is like the costuming, and it's just like a visually very stunning film.
It is.
And then I think the sound design was really great too.
This is a film to see in theaters. Having that surround sound like that with the music and it made me anxious sitting in the theater at times with the sound effects and the music and everything and the pace of it. Like, it's a good one to see in theaters. Also, I felt very safe in this movie theater. I often go to movies and I'm always keeping one eye on the screen and one eye on the entrances and exits and patrons because I'm not trying to be killed at the movie theater. But this one, there was not a single man in that theater. It was all women.
God bless.
All women around my age. It was incredible. I'm like, I have never felt this safe in a movie theater before. I didn't have to look around for anyone because I knew all the hoes showed up for Harry and Florence.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you had a good, non-anxious movie theater experience because I'm the same way. Every time somebody rustles in their seat, I'm like, are you going to the bathroom or are you going to shoot everybody?
Pull out a firearm. Yeah, right. What are we doing here? What's the plan? I remember when I went to go see the third Purge movie with my brother. It was like a packed movie theater and the guy walked in with a backpack and I could not focus that whole movie because he sat up front too, like in the front rows. So I was I was just waiting for him to stand up and turn around.
That sucks that we have to think about that, but
it was really good. And the style, just the whole style of the film too. Like not only just the costuming and the way it was shot. It like I loved the shots of cooking breakfast, you know, like her cleaning, like those kind of cut shots. It was just I loved that. And looking at this movie, I'm like, we'll get into like all of this stuff, but it's like you can't deny that this is like a visually stunning movie to watch.
It's very well done cinematically. I'm anxious to watch this movie again for the performances and the visuals. Like that's truly what stands out to me about this film. It was very entertaining and enjoyable to watch.
This is like a rewatch one. You know, you go to the theaters, you see some, and you're like, I don't know if I'll ever rewatch that. This is one where it's like, oh, I will definitely be rewatching that.
Right. What was that one we watched? What was that called with Adam Driver and
The Last
Matt
Duel?
Damon? The Last Duel. Yeah, that one. It's like I'm glad I saw it once, but I don't think I'd ever rewatch it unless it was like on a plane or something. But this, I will probably purchase on DVD at some point.
Right off the bat, I think the movie does a great job of establishing like the lust that what are their names? Alice and Jack. Jack, that's his name. Alice and Jack. I was going to say Alice and Harry, and I'm like, that's definitely not correct. Alice and Jack have for each other when they're at this party, and they're like very hands-on with their friends. They're all drinking. They're having fun. Like, they're spilling drinks. Like, no one really is. They're not like sloppy, but they're just like carefree.
Right.
And it just right off the bat creates the vibe that like these two are so into each other. They have great friends. They have just like a seemingly very idyllic life, which obviously unfolds throughout the movie. But right off the bat, from that one and only party scene, I feel like you get a total handle on how Jack and Alice's relationship is.
I
At least at this
1000%
stage.
agree. It's so subtle too, like with it's just the way they're looking at each other and the way he's looking at her. And I think that's so important because I mean they have that eye line, but you can clearly see he is in awe of her. That really makes a whole lot of sense, like moving forward through the film and kind of like moving into the plot twist and everything. And then yeah, that like carefree environment that they're all kind of existing in, especially when they go into the car and they're just like swerving and all this crazy stuff. It's just like a very beautiful, idyllic life.
And you like want to buy into that from the beginning as well. Like you want to be like, oh yeah, I hope that it goes well for them. Like you want to see them living this charmed life.
For me, I was like, okay, well, what's the
catch?
Yeah, what's the catch? Absolutely. Him being so in love with her and so in awe of her and also wanting what's best for her and kind of looking out for her best interests, that carries throughout the film, which like once again makes the ending like all that more tragic. Spoilers ahead, obviously, people, if you haven't seen this movie, we're going to be talking about everything that happens in it. From that moment where he's watching her dance at the party and just doesn't give a shit about literally anybody except her. And then moving forward when the doctor's like prescribing her pills and she said she doesn't want them and he's like, yeah, no, she doesn't need them. She said she doesn't want them, so she doesn't need them. Like him advocating for her. And I truly believed him up until the end of when he was like, okay, we're going to go. We're going to get out of here. Like he had me under his spell too. And I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit, but like good thing I didn't live in the Ted Bundy city limits because baby, I would have been out.
Well, because I was just about to say, Katie, we've talked before, or like you've said how like gullible you are. And it's like, I did wonder that as I was in the theater, because I was like, this is sus. Like, there's no way that he's actually going to leave. And then when he did that, I was like, yep, no, I don't trust him. And then I did like think about that. I'm like, I wonder what Katie's going to think about that.
I'm too trusting. I want to believe the best in people. Well, I guess I just kind of want to talk about thrillers in general because I feel like it's a genre of film that is very like near and dear to our hearts. Michaela and I as film people, we love a good thriller, right? I would also say that we're a little bit tough to please when it comes to thrillers. I think you have to have a couple of like compelling elements. We do enjoy getting our minds blown every once in a while. Like when we're in the mood for it, we're ready for it. Like we're ready to get our shit rocked a little bit. But we don't want to feel completely lost the entire time. Like I don't want to never have a little sliver of information. Like I'm fine to start off not knowing anything, but as the film progresses, I want to be knowing more and more and getting closer and closer. You can throw me off, but like I want to feel like I'm getting somewhere, you know? And I don't want my time to be wasted. Like I don't want there to be weird imagery and then after the film is over, I don't want to be looking back and being like, what was that? And then being like, damn, that really had no purpose. That was just a fucking waste of time. And then I said, I want to be satisfied by the ending. I think as far as thrillers go, this is a good one. Is it my favorite thriller? No, but I think overall, for the most part, it satisfied a good amount of those elements. There's a few lingering things where I'm just like, that made no sense. That had no real place in this film. I think the more I reflect on this movie and think about it, I love the concept. Like, I am really, really enamored with the concept. I'm not thrilled with the way that it was executed. I think I would have liked to see it done differently. But that doesn't mean it's a bad film or it's bad directing or anything. Would have done it differently, or as an audience member, I would have liked to see things done a different way. Okay. And I think that's okay. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
So when I first got out of the movie, I ranked it 8 out of 10. Okay. And I still feel like that would pretty much stay. Like my enjoyment of it was high. I had a good experience with it. I thought the performances were great for the most part. I loved the style. Like we said, I love the sound. There were certain things that like the imagery in it at one point, I was like, if I see these fucking dancers again, like I'm done. Like why? I feel like there was a chunk in the middle where we saw them so frequently and like such a long strand of put together imagery like that I was like, why do we keep getting this? And it was getting like repetitive and a bit annoying because I'm like, this isn't going anywhere right now. But I would say like I didn't necessarily see the twist coming. I mean, like I thought I'm like, they're in some sort of like, I don't know if I thought a simulation or if that's like me thinking this after the fact. Like I can't remember what I was thinking in the moment, but I guess I wasn't like mind blown about the simulation. I think I was kind of mind blown about like the circumstances around it, that he had like trapped her in there. So I really, really loved that aspect because I did not see that coming. And like you said, I want to be surprised. I want to be thrilled. And like in Gone Girl, when we found out that what's her face was alive and like that she had orchestrated it all, I was like, and that's how I kind of felt with with Jack's reveal.
Right.
So yeah, I would say overall, like, I'm satisfied with it. I don't understand the like horrible reviews. I have not read any of them, but I have seen like people making TikToks about like how low of a Rotten Tomato score it had, how like much critics were bashing it. So I just know that that was happening. I haven't like read any of those. So like, who knows? That might change my opinion. I don't want to read those before we did this podcast because we both try to always keep our thoughts like our thoughts and not get influenced by like outside means before we give our opinion. And again, I was not going into this movie trying to like dissect each and everything. I just wanted to enjoy it. I wanted to have a fun time. So yeah, there are certain things that I want to get into that I feel like were not fleshed out that could have been so much better. But overall, like I really, really enjoyed it. So 8 out of 10 from me.
I think I would give it a similar rating, like 8.5 out of 10, because I was entertained throughout the entire thing. And I think that's largely to do with how aesthetically pleasing this film is, like I keep saying, and then the performances. And I do feel like I will be entertained on a rewatch because I'll be trying to pick up things that I wasn't able to pick up the first time. So yeah, the only thing, I didn't read any reviews. The only thing I did research on was the drama and all the stuff that people have been talking about this film, because I know it's like circulating a lot on TikTok, and whenever I like was seeing stuff about it, I kind of just skipped because again, I wanted to like be going into viewing this movie with like as blank of a slate as possible. But then after seeing the film, I debriefed myself on, you know, the Harry and Chris Pine spitting scandal and the Florence and Olivia situation, and just I wanted to know everything after seeing the film. All of that, it doesn't change my view of the film by any means. I think the negative reviews, critics are, you gotta take what they say with a grain of salt because they're being paid for what they're doing, and they can be a little bit pretentious, and I think they're riding, you know, this trend that there is right now to hate on this movie and Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles. So whether that is deserved and justified or not, I'm not gonna say it is or not, but like,
it's why we like having a podcast, because we kind of ride that line of like, because you see on Rotten Tomatoes sometimes like critic scores are so low, but then audience score is so high. And I feel like we kind of like hit a good middle ground of that because we are looking at films critically, but we're also just trying to like enjoy them and have fun and not pick every little detail apart. Yeah. So I feel like we're kind of like the middle ground.
Absolutely. Like we only cover films that and shows that we, for the most part, are fans of, you know, like we want to talk about things that we care about. So
and we're passionate about Radio Rebel and the kissing booth.
That's what I meant by for the most part. That's where we differentiate between or from critics, is because we are fans first. Yeah, I think it's always interesting when audience and critics' opinions of films are like very offset. And yeah, that's just, I guess, what this film is doing. Nobody wants to praise a film that has like one of the most famous like pop stars in it, who doesn't need to be an actor, but is choosing to go that route. It's super easy pickings for film critics to hate on this film just for Harry's involvement alone.
Which they did the same shit with Lady Gaga in A Star Is Born, and then with House of Gucci, which that I'm like, y'all were stretching with Lady Gaga. If you want to hate on Harry's acting in this, we'll discuss. But like, I feel like they're kind of like a closed circle, and they don't want anyone imposing on that circle who has star power outside of it.
So you said you did kind of start to see where it was going at one point. I liked what you said earlier about the real twist is the circumstances of it. Can you like elaborate on that a little bit?
And again, I don't know if I'm thinking like that I thought I was smarter than I actually am when I'm thinking about the twist. I think because it is so idyllic and the stuff with the like mountains surrounding it and it being in this like isolated location and them being able to like charge whatever and like seeing planes but aren't actually there, I was like, that's where I kind of started to get the hint. I'm like, do we think this is like some sort of like simulation?
Right.
But again, I don't know if this sounds dumb, but I don't know if I was thinking in my head that like her body is somewhere else. I feel like I was thinking that like they were like actually in there as
right.
themselves in their own bodies. So that's what kind of like was the twist for me. But the plane was kind of the first giveaway. Maybe something was up with the world that they were in and not being like an actual world, if that makes sense. But again, then I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, they're in an actual location when they weren't, like they didn't turn out to be. So I don't really know quite what I was thinking, but so I guess that didn't like super surprise me to find out that it was the sim. It was that he had trapped them in there, and then that other husbands had done the same thing with these women. And the thing that like at first I was like, it doesn't make sense when they at the dinner table when they have Chris Pine over and she starts challenging him about like how the stories of how everyone met and how they all met in the same places and stuff. Then I was starting to think like, were these women like drugged and trafficked? Like that's where my mind went to it. But then now and the after fact, I'm like, oh, that must just be like the story that they're all supposed to give these women. But then I'm still like, so did these other men have these girlfriends or wives in the real world and do what like Jack did? Or did they find women and like kidnap them for this? Like that's what I'm kind of that's one point of confusion for me. Do you have any like idea about that?
No, I don't. And that's something that I feel like is missing from this. You tell the story that you want to tell, right? Like they chose to go the route that they did. They chose to give us the information that they ended up giving to us by the end of the film. But we're left with a lot of questions, like, and maybe on a rewatch we'll get more from like Chris Pine's or Frank's like radio broadcasts that he's doing, and then the stuff that Jack is listening to. Like maybe there's some more stuff in there maybe there's some subtle imagery that will kind of give more information on a rewatch that we just weren't able to pick up this first time around. But I have the same questions that you do about what the other family's circumstances are. We get a little bit of insight into Bunny's situation, how she chose to be in this simulation because she's able to have kids in the simulation. But again, that's kind of where the information stops. Is it because she wasn't able to have children in the real world? Was it because her children died in the real world? Like, what's that situation? I want to know what Chris Pine's character looks like in the real world. I want to know what all of these people's situation is, and you can kind of come up with your own, conclusions and like kind of figure out like what type, you can assume what type of men these guys are. Obviously, if you have to like fucking kidnap and trap a woman into this simulation I don't know. Just the mentality that they all have, like, this is our world and we're living the lives that we deserve. I mean, we all know what those types of men are like, but I would have maybe liked to see that. I would have liked to see all of them, maybe.
Agreed. And then how did they get in the simulation? Or I guess, well, we kind of see that with the new couple that's being introduced, but it's like, so then when they're plopped into the simulation, do they already have stuff in their brain of like, oh, like a made up I mean, I guess they did because they all had the story about how they met, so I guess I just solved that one for myself. But Bunny, I want to talk about her thing with her kids, because from the way that I understood it in the movie, I thought that her kids had maybe died in the outside world, and then in here she was like, well, in here I have my kids again. I thought that maybe that was the line. I could have been wrong, and maybe she couldn't have kids, whatever. The thing that like with Bunny's character, that is one thing that I think should have been done differently. She was such a blasé mom. Like, she did not give a fuck about her kids whatsoever. And if that is her reason for being in here, she should have been obsessed about them. She should have been hyper protective about them. Even in this idyllic world where she doesn't need to be. She should have been baking cookies and playing with her kids and like doing all that stuff rather than constantly being annoyed with them, constantly not like yelling at them, but just like, scolding them.
Yeah, constantly. She's drinking, she's smoking. Like, when they come home from school, they're running up to Florence and not her. So I agree. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that, but that's a really good point.
So that was one of my things with Bunny's character that I'm like, that would have been better for her character at the end, because then you would have been like, because right now then looking back on her character when she's like, well, I stay here because of my kids, looking back on it, I'm like, why? Like, why would you even stay here? That doesn't seem like a good enough reason. Where if we found out that she was like, if her and Florence could have had an emotional moment of her revealing like, like, like my kids died, or I can't have kids and I can have kids in here and I can live out that life, and like really hit an emotional punch with that, but it just like fell kind of flat, because it's like, okay, well, you don't even seem to like your kids.
Yeah,
so I don't get it. It wasn't as powerful as it could have been. Like, because then I would have gotten behind Bunny and been like, oh, well, then I could totally see why she would want to stay.
And so then is she the only woman that knows? And so the rest of them are kind of like in this cult with Frank. I mean, that part kind of makes sense to me, right? Because there are these like pocket groups of men in society today that like all band together over their hatred for women and their like want to domesticate and like possess women in a way. And there's this like obsession with the time period that the simulation seems to be emulating, like the 50s and 60s, when women were subservient and really just, we didn't just exist to serve men, but that's what society like made it be like. And you're just there to make a beautiful home and to be ready for whatever the husband wants when they return home from work, and you're right there at the door to hand him a drink and dinner's already made and ready, and you give him whatever he wants. Like, there is a huge obsession with that. And I think that's what this simulation is tapping into.
Just talking about like this lifestyle and like the lifestyle that these women are living in this movie, there's a part of me that when I'm watching it, I'm like, that does not look half bad. She's going to dance class, she's going shopping, she can spend whatever she wants and charge it. They have that conversation about that. They go to the pool, they have beveraginos. Okay, wait, that just made me think, what about those kids? Who the fuck were those kids serving the drinks that they were like creeped out by?
Yeah, what was that about?
Was
that Frank's kids?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know whose kids those were.
Weird. They're all in love. They're all like disgustingly in love. Jack is coming home every day. They're having a wild, fun time together.
Yeah.
And part of me is looking at this and I'm like, you get to stay home all day. You get to do whatever you want all day. I'm kind of like, that's kind of great. That would not be great in the long run. That would be fun for like a week. And then I'd be like, get your ass up and cook your own dinner. Looking at it, I'm kind of like, that looks fun. And Katie, like, is there any part of that at the beginning you kind of like fell into that not like trap that these women were in? Because obviously I don't think they were, any of them besides Bunny was there by choice.
Right.
But like, did you also kind of like buy into that kind of lifestyle these wives were living?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's what the film wants you to feel, because we don't know what's going on in the homes of the other couples, really. Like, our view of that is very limited. All we really see is this life that Alice is living, and then the relationship that her and Jack have, and it's very desirable. It's a very, to be honest, like, I'm not gonna complain that much if I am sitting poolside for 2 hours, then going to the store and buying whatever the fuck I want. They have models coming out that like show me what the dress looks like, and I can just say, yep, I want that, add it to the bill, and then take the trolley home, make a roast, and then be ready at the door with a fucking whiskey for my husband, who then proceeds to eat me out for the rest of the night. Like, I'm fine with that. He buys me a fucking cute ass dress for a dinner party that we get to go to later, where we're like doing drugs and drinking with all of our friends, and you're gonna put on a little dance. Great.
Fun.
It sounds fun, and I think that's
same.
I think that's how this movie wants you to feel.
This movie even made you feel that, and you're a lesbian.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very strange. It's a weird feeling, I think, as like a lesbian, obviously, but then also like a feminist, and just, I think that is where this film really succeeded, was making that look desirable, but then there's just something a little bit off. That's probably how, well, I don't know for sure, but I think if you're a woman existing in the time period that this simulation is emulating, again, of like the 50s and 60s, like, you don't have have to worry about money because you're not allowed to have your own bank account. You don't have to worry about going to work because you won't get hired anyway if you apply for a job. It's like, yeah, you don't have to worry because you don't have the right to worry about anything, to have any agency over your life. So that's what's a little bit off about it. It's like you are sacrificing agency over your own life and choice. Like they're living this idyllic life, but the choice has been completely taken away from them. They did not choose this life, with the exception of Bunny. And that's where it's like, that's wrong. And that's, I think, where, as an audience member, you kind of look inward in that moment. Women deserve the right to choose. And just because there are perks of being a housewife and not having to work, being forced into that role in any capacity, whether it's because the law literally doesn't allow you to have a job or a bank account or live by yourself without a man, or being forced into it in a more modern context because you are not allowed to get an abortion, so then you have to become a mother and you have to be forced into a role. So I think that's what this film is kind of making commentary on. And again, I love the concept. Think it could have been executed a little bit better, but that's just what I've been reflecting on since watching it yesterday. Like, I agree with you. This life does not seem half bad, but she didn't choose it. She had a life that she was living before, and her partner said, "You're not happy, so I'm going to kidnap you and put you in this simulation where my idea of what happiness is going to be forced upon you."
You know what the whole scene reminded me of when Florence was like, "You took my life," like whatever. It very much reminded me of in Passengers when Jennifer Lawrence's character finds out that he woke her up from from the suspended sleep. Gave me same energy.
Yeah.
Except at least Chris Pratt's character in that was like remorseful about it, where Jack was like, "Okay, so you're not going anywhere."
Yeah, and he was like, "I did this for you. I go and work." And so it's like, what are you doing for work then? Because they're leaving the simulation.
Yeah, so I think they're going back into the real world to make money, so that way they can still keep, like, the apartment up and running and stuff that they're, like, suspended in, paying all those bills in the real world in order to live in this fake world where there are no bills, no money, no nothing like that.
That is where I'm out, because you're doing all of this to have your evenings with the woman of your choice. You're the miserable one, bitch. Like, why are you doing all of that? I don't know. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'm very confused by that. So they're leaving the simulation, and then he's like wetting her lips and her eyes so that her fucking body doesn't dry out, and he's like feeding her through a fucking tube.
You know what maybe would have made it make like a little more sense is if it was almost like they had a facility that everyone was housed in, like all of the simulations. Like, can you imagine if it would have been a shot, like I did like the shot of Florence I need to start calling them Alice in that apartment and Jack doing that, like wetting her lips and feeding her, whatever. Can you imagine though if it would have been all of these men in a warehouse together doing this to their wives that are under the simulation, and maybe like that Chris Pine funded this facility that everyone is in, and then like the men come back and they work in like that building, and maybe it's like a money laundering type thing, and that's like their job is like they're all still together, they're all still like going to work together. It's not like how it seemed to be where like they all come back into the world alone, do their own separate real world live thing and then go back into the sim.
So what they're driving to is that the exit portal, and that's what she went to and like kind of looked in on.
So when you touch that, then you exit.
Well,
that's what they drive to every day.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think it would have been cool to have it be that, where it's like a facility. I thought when it was first revealed, I thought she was dead. I thought he killed her and then like uploaded her to this kind of simulation. Maybe that could have been, I'm not saying that would have been a better route to go, but and then like if they die in the simulation, they die in the real world, but it's just the men. Like, where does that rule come in? How does that work? Like, there's just a few holes that I personally would not want to have exist in my film.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm gonna say. Because I don't want to be pretentious and I don't want to be like, well, as a filmmaker, because I'm an aspiring filmmaker, I'm not a filmmaker. I want to see what these men look like on the outside. I want to see what all of them look like on the outside. I want to know what you're saying. So what? Jack is going to work at fucking McDonald's?
Like, what are they doing? Yeah.
Yeah, and what is the point paying for this shabby little apartment just to live in this house, like, at nighttime?
I'm just picturing if we would have seen Jack and, like, how he lost his job and, like, became this, like, kind of recluse loser. Like, not saying that people who lose their jobs are losers, but, like, that he didn't do anything. He just, like, holed up in his apartment, got bitter towards his girlfriend, and found, this purpose with this online group. And I would have loved to have seen the other men and, like, seen the new guy. Like, is he low level at some firm? Like, did he graduate law school and thought he would be a big shot, and, like, everyone hates him and overlooks him and he sucks at his job, and, like, why did he join? And, like, you just see all of these men, like, sucking in the real world,
right,
and that's why they do it. I think that would have been cool to see multiple husbands on the outside.
My other question is, what did Jack do to be promoted to being on the board of advisors, the senior board of advisors? Like, what was that? What happened there? I think just a tiny moment of seeing them all in, like, a chat room together or something, or they're all meeting in person for the first time somewhere, like a flashback to that would have done so much, because, the new guy freaking out and, like, breaking down when Alice is running off, and Nick Kroll's character, like, going after her with his full force trying to stop her, like, that does some of the work. Like, okay, so it's all the men who know what's going on, obviously, and they want to keep things the way that they are. And then the fact that Bunny is, like, defending the men and being like, well, we don't need to know what they're doing out there, and it's dangerous, and they're doing really important work. Like, any time that the conversation starts to move to, like, what are we all doing here, and, like, what are they doing out there, Bunny is the one to be like, no, it doesn't matter, we don't think about that. Like, those things all do a lot, but I just wish we had a little bit more, because I'm curious, like, I'm intrigued, I want to know more.
Yep.
And I think I would feel a little bit more satisfied if we knew these things, because they're clearly the Victory Project is clearly expanding, right? Like, they're adding a new row of houses behind Peg.
That was funny when she said that they'd be closer to town.
That was hilarious.
I liked Peg.
I like moments like that where it's like status is clearly an important thing to these people, especially Peg. She's like, well, we weren't invited to that party. Like, what does that mean? So it's like, are these men, is the work that they're doing for the advancement of this, like, movement to make women subordinate and have men live the lives that they deserve, give their chosen women the lives that they think that they deserve? Like, is that the work that they're doing to mine progressive materials? Is that code for we're expanding this movement? Like, are they driving out of the simulation and then going into the real world and preaching this ideology and getting more men to pay the subscription for Victory, and then those men get indoctrinated in and then go out and do the same? Like, is that they're, like, convincing people to come into the simulation, and maybe they're convincing some women to come into it, and, like, like, that would be very interesting to see, because that's kind of the whole lingering question. That's the question we have from the very beginning. What are they doing? What are they doing out there? And we never really get that answer. It's just they're leaving the simulation.
And we don't get that.
How would you be able to survive not knowing what your partner's doing, but you are living, like, how do you think you would fare in this situation?
Not well, bitch. Let me tell you why. Well, actually, I don't know. I think I'm too anxious that I would come up with horrible possibilities in my mind of what he was doing when he left. Yeah. That I would never be able to get over that.
That's what I was kind of thinking. I was like, my mind is going to the worst possible place. Like, if I see Harry Styles killing a child, I don't know if I'll ever be able to recover from that, or if they're like murdering dogs or something. Like, my brain was truly going to the worst case scenario, because it has to be really bad, right? If you're coming home and immediately like wanting to eat my pussy before dinner, like you just throw the whole dinner on the ground because that's how eager you are. If you are at that place emotionally, but you're not willing to tell me what you're doing at your place of work, my brain is immediately going to like, you're murdering newborn puppies. I'm just like, if you can get there with me physically, why are you not able to tell me what you do for work?
See, my mind went to like organized crime.
Okay. What do you mean organized crime, like the mafia?
Yeah.
So that
Pretty much.
you kind of thought like that's what they were doing, just like beating bitches
Well,
up.
no, I don't know what I thought they were doing. I definitely was not that they were killing puppies, but I don't I think I was like the rest of the wives who were just like, meh. I think I wasn't like trying to actively guess what they were doing. You know, I was
Yeah.
curious, but I wasn't like sitting there in the theater like, oh, I wonder what they're doing out there. Like, I was like, let them figure that out. I'm gonna sit here and enjoy it.
I was awaiting this big reveal of like, what are they doing? And this whole concept of like mining kept coming up. So I was like, they're harvesting these like radioactive materials that are like poisonous and making these women feel like they're crazy when they're not.
I definitely thought the drinks were spiked. Like, I was
Right.
thinking that like stuff was spiked and then
Yeah.
things were not spiked.
They are always drinking, always partying. I think an important element of this film that was incorporated in was the like gaslighting and the like making women out to feel like they're delusional, they're having hallucinations, they're crazy, you're tired, you were overserved, like all this stuff women have to deal with a lot of, like, oh no, come on, don't be hysterical, like all this stuff. I'm glad that that was incorporated into it, because I think that's something that women have had to deal with again for a really long time, and men have to deal with it too. But
Speaking of all the hallucinations, can we get into Margaret?
yeah,
Because I'm confused about
Yeah.
Margaret as a whole. Like, again, I feel like we're kind of picking a lot of things apart right now. And again, it doesn't take away our overall enjoyment, like our
Right.
questions that we still have, but we still have questions. And Margaret is a huge question mark for me because she just kind of disappeared. No clue what happened to her. But
Mhm.
also, the things that Alice was seeing in this, it's like, well, why was Margaret like bashing her head on the ballet wall and no one saw that? Like, is it a glitch in the simulation? Like, I'm confused of what the purpose of Margaret was, and except for to arouse suspicion for Alice.
Yeah.
But yet it's not like Margaret. Like, then how did she see those things? Like, what was? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. I think she definitely did see Margaret like slitting her throat and trying to like, because she was trying to like exit the simulation. Was that Margaret dying, and like, did Margaret actually die in real life? And is that what, like, yeah, obviously like the husband got kicked out of the program, like that all makes sense. Yeah, I just don't know. It's very ambiguous, which I think some things can be ambiguous, but some things do need to be tied up, because Margaret's involvement is such a crucial part of the film. We see Alice in Florence's performance. It's evident to me, at least, that she's like, oh no, now I'm starting to go crazy, just like Margaret did. Like, she is questioning herself, and I think that's what Margaret's character kind of does, is she has Alice's character not sure of herself, and kind of like there's that uncertainty of something's amiss, but like I saw what happened to her, and so I don't want to be questioning things and being pegged as crazy. And I think a lot of times in thrillers there's like that first person who was deemed as crazy, and so it deters the main character from fully committing to trying to find out the truth until they can't ignore it anymore. I think that's like a common trope and something that's utilized in thrillers. But yeah, so we find out that all the kids are like CPU, like the kids aren't real. So that kind of explains why those kids who were serving drinks are fucking weird. They took away Margaret's kid because they went out into the desert. Was he a CPU, or was he a real kid that they like took away from her? What's this Red Plains situation? Like, what was she seeing there?
Even just to like tie up Margaret's character a little bit, like it would have been great if when we're seeing Jack back in the real world, you know, when he's on his little computer and
Mhm.
taking care of Alice, if we see like he's got on one of his monitors like a news site pulled up and it's like local woman found dead and it's like Margaret's picture, you
Mm.
know, like unknown cause, because then we would like have that confirmation. Or even then I'm thinking like in the real world, is no one looking for these women?
Yeah, what's that situation? Is it being passed off as like, well, they chose to be in it? That's why I feel like it would make more sense if they died and then got uploaded into it.
Yeah. At the end of the movie, that was the first thing that kind of popped into my head. I was like, so what happened with Margaret? And like,
Mhm.
I like things being left open to interpretation, but for her specifically, I don't like this instance of it being left up to interpretation because I think it almost feels like laziness a little bit to just be
Mm.
like, well, we're not gonna, like, who cares about that? We have other things to deal with. And it was
Yeah.
kind of like, what are we gonna do about Margaret? Okay, we'll just like kind of leave it be and leave that
Mhm.
up to people's imagination. I don't know. It could have like tied things together better, I think, if we would have known what happened with her.
Going back to what you were talking about with the dancing women and like, you know, the imagery of the eye and the pupil like expanding and retracting and
Mhm.
like the women's legs expanding and retracting. Like I liked that imagery, but I agree with you. It was overdone and it really had nothing to do with the overall like plot. It was just they're all waiting around for their husbands to get home. So like what are they going to do?
Mhm.
They're going to like learn how to do ballet because pretty girls do ballet. Like I don't
Mhm.
I there's really no other purpose for that other than like the cool imagery, which again, it's cool,
Mhm.
it's dope, but we need it once or
Yeah.
twice or three times, but we got it like 8 or
We got
9.
it so many times.
So get
So
rid
many
of some of
times.
those times and show us the flashbacks, show us just little glimpses of stuff that we want to see. Like even the moment when we're getting Jack's character being like, you know, how am I going to take care of you and all this stuff. That was such a subtle moment where they're just like laying in bed together having pillow talk.
Mhm.
And we really only see the top of his hair and that he has scruff and he's talking in an American accent. And that's all the information we need. He lost his job. He is not British. And he, you know, that probably led him to like pursuing this work at Victory. Why I think we needed a couple more moments like that where we got just enough information to help us like move forward. Also in the moment when she's running away and she has Jack's blood on her dress, I kind of felt like all of the women have kind of felt the same way that she has, not necessarily to the full extent where she's like hunting for the truth, but clearly Peg has some questions. Clearly the other girl that's like the new guy's
Mhm.
wife, she's like a little uncertain about things. When they're all kind of like walking towards Alice and being like, "Wait, yeah, something is fucked up here." It would have
Mhm.
been again cool to have another moment where it's like they're all united in that moment. Like they're all kind of like, yeah, you have been making me feel crazy. Like fuck you.
Mhm.
And then they all go. That would have been cool. Or they all help her at least.
Well, and why were like lampposts exploding?
Right. I think yeah, was it like her subconscious like sabotaging the
Mm.
simulation or like and it seemed like her subconscious was trying to get her to be like this isn't real. Remember like when she wrapped her head in saran wrap, it was kind of like I
Yeah.
wondered if that was her subconscious being like wake up bitch, like Chrissy,
Yeah.
wake up.
Or like even the things about like being smushed
Yep.
to the glass that are all like cool elements, but then it's like I want to know why at the end.
Mhm.
But Chris Pine being this cult leader, love.
Yeah.
Absolutely love. He's everything that you think about in that kind of like cult leader mentality. Like he's a little like touchy-feely. He's a little or touchy-feely in the moment like when he's getting up and he's like in people's faces and he's like connecting with them, like seeing them deep in their souls. He's like an enigma, you know, he's kind of like kept far away. He's kept on a pedestal. When you're around him, it's like, oh, you're in like in his presence. I loved that. I thought he fit the
Mhm.
role amazingly.
He
And I loved
killed
him.
it.
Yes, and I loved him and Alice dueling at the dinner table that night.
Yeah, because I feel like those are the two highest caliber actors in this film, and I thought it was a great choice to have Florence Alice be like, "Thank you," and just take that other seat at the other head of the table. I agree. That was a great moment for
Mhm.
sure.
Let's get into Harry.
Mhm.
I think it's hard when you're going up against actors that have just had way more experience. They're higher caliber actors. And I feel like the scene that overall, I guess, first of all, overall, Katie, how did you like Harry?
I was really blown away by his performance.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know if I'm the best judge of acting. I think it doesn't take a whole lot for me to be impressed by your acting. I don't think I have the best eye or judge of like good acting, but I love Harry Styles. I'm a huge fan, and when I was watching this movie, he achieved, in my opinion, removing himself from that. I didn't
Agreed.
see Harry Styles. I saw this character, Jack Chambers. To me, I'm like, that's an incredible feat because again, I love Harry. I love him so much, and for him to have achieved that with this film, for me at least, he really surpassed my expectations. I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, I agree. I think overall, I think he did a good job. Like you said, removing himself. Love that. Also, I fucking love Harry as well. I mean, I literally have a picture of him right there on my bedroom wall. Like, I love him. So again, this is like no slight to him whatsoever. I just think it was like a hard challenge to go up against some of these other actors where there were certain scenes and moments where I felt like he wasn't rising to the occasion. There were other scenes where like when him and Alice were fighting, like Florence Pugh's character, incredible. I thought they were so good fighting. The clip that people had where they were like making fun of his accent going in and out, I'm like, I didn't hear that at all in the film. I thought he was incredible in those fight sequences. I thought he was great at the end. Thought he was great being creepy Harry or creepy Jack, whatever. A lot of really great moments, especially when he got Alice in the car and then when he called all the people in and took her away and he's like having this meltdown, and you can tell like how much that he's like, I think it's the loss of Alice in that moment, but it's also the loss of this life that he painted, and now looking back on it, when you know the whole truth, you get why that was such a meltdown moment for him.
Yeah.
The scene where I was like, he's not delivering what I want him to deliver, and this is where I'm like, someone else could have done this moment better, I think, who's like a seasoned actor, was the moment when he's promoted at that party with Chris Pine and he calls him up on stage. I got nothing from him in that moment whatsoever. His face was like blank. I got no sense of like excitement. I got no sense of trepidation or like achievement. Like I didn't know what I was supposed to be feeling about this promotion because I didn't know what he was feeling about this promotion. And now knowing that he's like this loser in real life who hates his life and like drug his girlfriend into this simulation so that way he could be like a hotshot, in that moment he should have been preening on stage and being like, I am the big man here now, look at me, I'm getting this recognition. You should have seen that of him being like, finally someone's recognizing me for all that I'm doing, and he should have had a moment like that, and it was flat. It was so fucking flat.
That's such a good point. I remember in that scene looking at him and being like, how does he feel about the situation? Because he seemed almost like sick to his stomach, like he didn't want the promotion, or he was worried about moving up in the ranks at this victory project. And it's like, that could have very well made sense somehow. Like he is kind of worried about moving up in victory. Like if that's the case, expand on that. But really all we got was Chris Pine being this like overly cultish person, and then Florence just having this breakdown in the bathroom. That was like not enough for me to know like how I'm supposed to feel about this situation other than uneasy. And that's just not enough at that point in the film. We're 2/3 of the way in. We should kind of be emotionally stable in something. Aside from that, I don't really have a whole lot of complaints about his performance. I think the role was understated enough that I think if he would have been on screen as much as Florence was, it probably would have been a little bit more rocky, but I think the role was understated enough and simple enough. Like, I know it's not a simple character, but like the character was somewhat static and not necessarily super dynamic, like changing throughout the film. It was a good role for Harry. There were a lot of moments where it was just him and Florence, and I think Florence really, it's a testament to her at the end of the day that those fighting sequences or those moments where it was just the two of them, like their chemistry is off the charts, incredible.
It's amazing. So much better than what Shia LaBeouf would have brought. Like, ew.
I know, I cannot picture him in this role.
No.
And I think what we were talking about before with the like evoking that feeling of, well, why are you complaining? Why are you seeking something wrong with this situation? I don't think that could have been achieved with Shia LaBeouf in the way that it was
No.
achieved with Harry playing this role. And maybe I'm biased because I love Harry and I'm straight for Harry, but
And I want to go back to the party scene. So obviously the whole promotion part with Chris Pine and him, like that was kind of a flop. But when he was making him dance on stage and like him being the puppeteer, that's only made so much better at the end of the movie than when you realize that this is a simulation that like this dude created and that these people all really are his puppets. That even though yes, these men are in the simulation and they're aware of it and they signed up for it, whatever, he still is ultimately the man in control. You see how much control he has over the men in there when they're all trying to like, when they're also excited to have him over for dinner parties and he shows up not wearing a tie and Nick Kroll's character is like, oh, stupid tie, and like rips it off as fast as he can because like he wants to be just like him. Seeing that moment, I know there have been like memes about Harry Styles dancing up on stage during that scene, but I actually really liked that. I thought that was great and like just showing the power that Chris Pine's character has over this entire group of people.
Right. That's a really good point. I think it's really cool concepts, like with all of these characters. With Chris Pine's character, that's such a dope concept, like what you were just talking about, and I wish we just had a little bit more where we could have seen the origin of that like admiration that all of these men have for him. In like a dusty basement where they're all like ugly Harry version, you know, of themselves.
I just have one more note, and going along the lines of Chris Pine, something. So obviously at the end, we have Gemma Chan, his wife, turning and killing him. I loved that. I feel like Gemma Chan was severely underutilized in this movie. I thought she could have had a way bigger role, and this is one of the things that I feel like they skipped out on the potential of her, is it felt out of nowhere at the end to have her kill him. Like, what? There was no hint towards that whatsoever. And if you want to do it for shock value, like fine, but I feel like there's enough shock value at the end that you don't have to throw that in there just for the sake of it. It would have been amazing if you see Chris Pine at these parties giving these big speeches and seeing her watching off to the side and kind of like watching him and being like, I don't really know if I agree with that. And maybe like some of the wives are questioning things and she steps in and she kind of like assures them or being like, you know what, I know it's not like always fair. Like, I know you're worried about her, you know, trying to like insert her agenda a little bit. Cause like, what is her agenda? So she's like, you've had enough time here and you've like run this shit into the ground. Like, I'm gonna take over. But like, why? Why does she want this power? Besides just her wanting to like, again, for the shock value. I just feel like that could have had so much more potential and they didn't give it the time that it deserves to have that moment really be like like I wanted to root for her in that moment, but I was kind of like, what's the point?
Okay, damn, that's fucking crazy, but Alice is on the run. Like, what's gonna happen to her? That all kind of happened in the last like 5 minutes of the movie. So I agree. That's a really good point. For me, with that couple and that relationship, I got kind of Handmaid's Tale vibes with Serena's character in The Handmaid's Tale. She's like Master's wife or whatever. They shared the ideology, and we get in The Handmaid's Tale, granted it's a TV show, they have more time to show us stuff, but we see that they shared that ideology of women belong in the home and should be subordinate and they shouldn't be allowed to like read or have their own bank accounts or whatever, and they just stay home and have the children. Like, they shared that ideology, and there are women out there who do believe that. It's not a very far-fetched way of thinking. Like, unfortunately, a lot of women are like manipulated into having these beliefs, or they just believe it themselves. I don't really know, but that would be believable to me. And it seems like she is kind of in charge of the wives, and they seem to be a little bit afraid of her when she comes in to like teach the ballet class. And so I think it would make sense that she's, you know, upholding this, what these women should be acting like and doing. And I think we could have used a few more moments of like, remember to be waiting for him at the door with his favorite scotch, and like having that, and then her not being satisfied with the way that Frank is running things, or he's letting things slip through the cracks or whatever, and that's why she kills him, and it's, you know, she's gonna run it now. I agree with you. I think she is underutilized, and that's another like interesting avenue that could have been pursued. And I think some imagery and things could have been sacrificed, like them blowing kisses at the camera. We got that again like 5-6 7 times, and it's like what is this like dance performance? What are they practicing ballet for? Like, is there a performance that they're gonna be putting on? Like, even that I would love to have like information about that. There's just so many things where it's like, what was the point of that? And I don't, as an audience member, I don't like feeling like my time was wasted or that I was like just brought on the runaround. But I don't feel that way overall about this movie. Again, I do really enjoy it, and I love how much I love what it's made me think about these past 24 hours since seeing it. I stand by my rating of 8 out of 10. I think it's valid and fair to have the questions that we have been having.
I think so too, and I think it's okay to acknowledge that you think things could have been fleshed out a little more or maybe like done a little better, but also acknowledging at the same time that you still enjoyed it as it was. It's just, you know, again, put us in the writer's room.
Right.
Katie and I. Yeah. My last just like kind of overall question is now knowing about like this, that it is a simulation and not that your partner like drags you into it unwillingly, whatever. Also how spooky when we got that flashback and she's like a doctor and seeing her like come home from work and like shrug him off when like so far or not so far. We had seen so much though how much they like just wanted to jump each other's bones all the time to see that. Yeah. It's like, oh, that was like, oof. Knowing like you voluntarily going in, would you like voluntarily sign up for a simulation like this?
No.
They're allies, so like you can have a wife in there.
Okay, am I staying home or am I?
You just
I don't know. I think I would volunteer to be in a simulation. Show me a cool ad for it, and I think I'd be down. I think what's more likely to happen down the line. I don't know if you've seen this show on Amazon Prime, but it's called Upload. When people die, they get uploaded to this like virtual reality. I think that is like incredibly possible to be like an option for rich people by the time that we're like old and dying, if we get to live that long due to the climate crisis. I mean, maybe that will be the answer to like the climate crisis. We just all get uploaded into a fucking virtual reality and this world explodes, and then we just fucking go on in a virtual reality. Or we're already in a fucking virtual reality and none of this shit fucking matters. And I can't answer this question because I will have an existential crisis. I don't know. If all I had to do was make Corinne dinner and have a drink ready for her when she got home, I think I could handle it.
Yeah. I think I'd like to like try it out. If there was a test run, I'd be like, could I go in for like, I feel like a week isn't long enough. I'd say like 2 weeks, you know? Yeah. I feel like you really have to get settled into that. Maybe 2 or even a month. I'd sign up for like a month trial. It's like a Prime trial, like Amazon Prime. You know, you sign up for the little trial, you get the little benefits. I think I would do that and see how it goes. But I think I would get really sick of not being able, or like always having to be responsible for everything. Like I would never get sick of just being at home all day doing whatever because I fucking love that. But I would really get sick of having a partner that just expected that I do everything for him. And like I would love to, you know, wait for him at the door with a drink, but only when I feel like it.
Yeah.
And it's like, when is he going to treat me? You know, like when is he going to cook me dinner? When is he going to wait with a drink for me?
Right. Yeah. And that's what's confusing about this movie. Not only the fact that like Harry Styles is super fucking attractive and he is treating Florence the utmost sexually, and then also like not just sexually, but like he's cooking her dinner when she doesn't feel well. She said she doesn't want the pills, bro, so back the fuck off. She doesn't need them. He's in her corner, so then it's just like hard. It's like, oh, but none of this was her choice. And he like kidnapped her and forced her into this, and that's really fucked up.
Yeah, especially when she was like, I love my job. And like the fact, like obviously just her choice in general, but you literally pulled her out of the entire real world. Like, did she just not show up to work one day? Like, what did he do? What are the logistics behind that?
And he's like, well, you're not happy. You weren't happy. And it's like, that's not for you to decide. That is her choice. Did you talk to her about joining this virtual reality? And she said no. And then you chose to, like, what, you know, it's very confusing. I think 2 things can be true at once. You can be like a good boyfriend and a, you know, giving lover and whatever, and also be a fucking psychopath and do really fucked up things like this. Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's a thinker. It makes you think.
a thinker.
Yeah, and then as far as all the drama goes, I don't want to talk about it too much, but if it is true that Florence got paid $700,000 and Harry got paid $2.5 million,
Wild shit.
if that's true, that is obviously fucked up and not okay. However, I don't think that it is super unbelievable because Hollywood undeniably is like corrupt and sexist, and removing the gender from all of it. Like, Harry is clearly going to bring in an audience, and unfortunately I think he'll bring in more of an audience than Florence, which feels crazy even coming out of my mouth because Florence is so incredibly talented at her craft and Harry is super talented in his craft, which his craft is not acting. And so that's why it feels yucky, because it's like, well, Harry could say tomorrow that he wants to be an author and he could do it. Harry could say tomorrow that he wants to be a fucking tightrope walker and he could do it just because he's Harry Styles. So if he got paid more for his involvement in this film, logistically it makes sense because he probably brought in a lot more people than would have come to see this film if it were Shia LaBeouf or somebody else. Does that mean he deserves that money for not having the experience that the other actors in the film have? Or, Florence is obviously like the top billed. She's number one on the call sheet. So like that makes no sense. It's the same with like Jennifer Lawrence and Leonardo DiCaprio in Don't Look Up. Pay disparities is like such a huge touchy subject, so I don't want to make any definitive claims about it, but like this is a movie about female autonomy and like how women deserve to choose and like not be subordinate towards men. And then if Olivia Wilde did allow for that huge pay discrepancy to happen, and now that she's like romantically involved with Harry Styles, it's not a good look.
And I've seen people being like, how dare he accept that money? It's like, you think that he had anything to do with his negotiations? You're fucking dumb. Like, there's no way that he had anything to do with any of these negotiations. He has people for that, okay?
Yeah.
And also, you think that he got that offer? No, his agents probably just accepted that and were like, you're doing this movie, or like, you said yes to this movie, here, you're gonna go and do it, whatever. It's not like he was going to, or like, it would be expected of him to ask, well, what is everyone else getting paid on this? And making sure that like it's in line with that. Go after the people, like the production and Olivia Wilde, like that level of people who are actually determining who's getting paid what money, not the actor who got that money. Yeah, there's a lot of things about like her dating Harry Styles, and then the stuff that came out with, I don't even want to get into, especially the Shia LaBeouf stuff, because I think he's a piece of fucking garbage, and it's like, I don't need to give that man any attention. But the videos, like the Miss Flo, like I do think that maybe Olivia Wilde was a little shady. There have been so many mixed reports, like that there was that screaming match and between them, and then like 40 crew members said that there was like no screaming match between them. No one knows. No one's going to know the full truth. It's never going to come out. There's just gonna be rumors circulating, whatever. This was amazing press for the movie.
Right.
The spit gate was incredible, even if he did not spit on Chris Pine. The drama got the movie a ton of attention, so good for her. I did see that she had said, that her films are talked about very differently, or like coverage and drama surrounding the film looks very different than her male counterparts. I do have to agree with her on that. I do also think, Olivia, you did stir some shit up, but I do agree that it's covered like, she has a point.
She does have a point, but I will counter with, if it were a male director who sought out a younger female singer to then be on the film, and then there are reports of that male director only caring about the female pop star that he brought onto the film, and then they start dating, and then if you're gonna play that card, not that it's a card, it's 1000% true what she said, that well, my male counterparts don't get all this drama circulating about their film, and it's just because I'm a female director. Valid. But if you're going to say that, you also got to say, if you were a dude doing this with a younger female artist, people would be talking about that too.
They would get away with it.
They would get away with it. They would get away with it, obviously, yes.
Yeah, it would be discussed.
Y'all can formulate your own opinions about the drama and everything surrounding this film. I think what you said is 100% spot on. It was great press for the movie, and that is probably all we're ever going to know to be 100% true.
Do you think that after this, is Harry going to be a big actor, or do you think he's going to...
I hope he just sticks with music. I don't want to be that person that's like, stick with what you know, or all this stuff, but it's like, I can't imagine he's like eagerly jumping to continue acting, like after all of this bullshit. Because I know he doesn't like drama and he doesn't like, he wants people to like him. I know that he is very, like, concerned with how people see him, so.
This should be something that maybe Harry does later in life. You know, I think he should just pump out some more albums, do some more touring. He's doing amazing with that. And maybe when he's at, like, in his 40s, you know, return to acting. Men can play roles for however fucking long they want. There's no, like, age limit really on men, to be honest, in this industry. It's not like when you're Florence Pugh, you know, your time is, like, a little more limited in the roles that you're gonna play before you become someone's mom. Come back to us in a little bit.
Yeah, again, he's got the chops.
I will watch whatever he's in. Yeah.
He's got the chops. He's not like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or fucking John Cena out here, like, trying to act. He's got talent. Like, he's capable. If I had to choose what I would prefer him to spend more time on, it would be music. Just how I feel about Rihanna. If I had to choose what she spent more time on, it would be fucking music and not Fenty Beauty or Savage X Fenty. But I'm not really a makeup wearing bitch, and I love when women wear lingerie, but I don't necessarily wear it myself. I'm so fucking happy that she's performing at the Super Bowl, bitch!
That's gonna be amazing.
If the Packers are in the Super Bowl, I'm calling it. We will see you guys next time. I don't think we have a plan for what we're doing, but we will be here.
Do not.
Don't worry, darling is in the books. Thank you guys for listening, and we lilas.
Lilas.